morning. Here we are again. We're going to clean up this flower garden before we start planting. I have to get all of the weeds out. Then I'm taking the flowers out, the calendulas. And the reason I'm taking the calendulas, planting is all in the timing often. And these are cool season. And if we don't get them out now and get the warm season in, the warm season won't start properly and they will struggle all summer. Okay, so we're gonna come along here with these calendulas. They're pretty, and we're gonna pop them out. See, we can just pop them out with the hoe like that. And it's kind of fun. And I'm cutting it back quite a bit because it's sprawling all over, and it's doing that because it's too shady really here. But I'm cutting all these sprawling stems back to try to get it to bush out a little better. And you cut right above a leaf node. A leaf node is where the leaf joins the stem. See, this is on the plant. Here's a node, here's a node. So I'm gonna cut right above a node. Then it'll bush out there. Or if you are making cuttings, you cut right below a leaf node because that's where the roots will be generated. We could make cuttings out of all these if we wanted to. I don't want to. We would strip off the lower leaves. Here we would cut below a leaf node. Now if you're making cuttings, you also want to take off all the flowers because they'll draw energy. And you want the energy to go towards producing roots and not flowers at this point. So that would be good for cuttings right there. And you've got two leaf nodes, and you would insert it. Vermiculite and perlite's a good mix, or soil mix. And insert it right about up above this. So you've got two nodes, so you can generate roots from both of those. Okay.
Go ahead.
These daylilies here are all from my garden at home that I divided. And all of these right here, they have a very interesting history because when they were blooming, when they bloom, the flower, then they form a plantlet on the bloom stalk. And so after it develops, I cut it off right below that and I planted them together in clusters, and that's how, because then they throw roots. So that's how I got all of these wide-leafed ones right here. They came from plantlets that developed on the flowering stalk. You have to be patient, but they'll develop that same year. You can either try to start new plants, which is very easy, or you can cut them off and throw them away. But you're throwing away plants, so why not start some more? Okay, now we're in stage 2. You can see we've cleaned up all the weeds and it looks pretty nice, but we're not done at all. So now we're going to add our soil amendment and till it up. We're going to add fertilizer. It'll be all raked smooth and just be beautiful with no footprints in it. So we're going to turn the little tiller on. We have to choke it. Okay, turn it on. Right here, I did not rototill. And the reason is, if you can look down here and see, we have nut sedge. This is a sedge, the shiny leaves. Nut sedge is on the 10 most noxious weeds in the United States. And it spreads by rhizomes, and it can get into cropland, it can get into your vegetable gardens, your gardens. If you see it, either spray it or try to dig it out with the nutlet. If I rototilled here, then I'm going to spread it. Then I'm going to get all of the stem parts and I can spread it through here. I'm going to try and dig it out with a trowel and get those little nutlets. I wouldn't know. But if I can find one with a nutlet. There it is. I'm trying to dig these up. The sedge, they're sedges, and they have a little nutlet on the end. See, there's roots, but here's the nutlet. You can feel it. If you don't get the nutlet, the plant will reproduce. It will keep growing. So you may think you've got it, but if you don't get that nutlet, then you're in for another crop. But see how they're very shiny leafed? So it's nut sedge, not a grass. Now, our next step is to put down the soil amendment and the fertilizer, and then we're going to kind of rake it smooth, and then we're going to till it one more time, then we're going to rake it smooth again, and then we're ready to plant. Okay, so what I'm putting down, and every time I plant this bed, which is twice a year, fall and spring, I always add soil amendment to it. What it does, it loosens up the soil and it adds nutrients to the soil. So if it's looser, the plant roots get more air and they grow better. And then we're going to throw in some fertilizer. This is a complete fertilizer. And that's what you want to use. And you look for the numbers on there. And that's the analysis. And it's nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Those three numbers have to be by law on all fertilizer bags. If something doesn't have that, it's not a fertilizer. And a good example is steer manure. Steer manure is a soil amendment, but it's not considered a fertilizer because it doesn't have high enough rating of nitrogen. So the first number represents nitrogen. That makes the plant green and healthy. The second one is phosphorus, and that promotes fruiting and flowering. So you want that for flowers. If you use this though for tomatoes, you'd get too much green growth. So this isn't a good one for tomatoes. Okay, and then the second one is potassium, and that's the overall health and vigor. So that's why you want a complete fertilizer. And then I add milorganite. Also add milorganite. This is one of my, so you can see it. Milorganite I learned about it 10 or 15 years ago from a friend. I designed a garden for a friend down south, and I worked with her landscaper, and I learned so much from him. But one of the important things he shared with me was milorganite. Now, milorganite is sewage sludge, and people will say, oh my gosh. Well, it's been around for, I think the bag says 90 years. It's slow release, it's nitrogen. The wonderful thing about it, it's slow release, and you can take milorganite like this. You can take milorganite and spread it, and you can just throw it on the plants, and it's not going to burn them. If you take this complete fertilizer and you throw it on the plants and you don't water it in and it lodges on the leaves, it's going to burn them. The milorganite you don't have to worry about. So you can just go out and broadcast milorganite like you would chicken feed. And it does smell, but only at first, and then it dissipates, so it's no big deal. So that's what we're going to throw on. We're going to amend, we're going to put fertilizer, and then we're going to put a milorganite. And while we're doing this, I am going to fertilize the entire bed too, all the existing plants, in addition to the area here where we're going to plant our bedding plants. And the bedding plants that we're going to plant today are zinnias. These are very tall ones, and they work beautifully here, and they're called State Fair. They'll get about 18 to 36 inches tall. They'll be really tall, and the deer don't eat them. And you see they're a little bit leggy, so when you plant annuals, you have to do a little sacrificing. And if they have a flower starting, we're going to go in and we're going to pinch the tips out. We're going to pinch the tips out. That way it causes it to branch at all of the other nodes, and you'll have a strong, sturdy plant instead of a long, tall, skinny one that falls over with irrigation or something. the State Fair zinnias, and we're going to read the label. It says plant in sun, 18 inches apart, and they grow 30 to 36 inches tall. So they'll get very tall, but they'll be really attractive behind the front border. So they're going to look pretty sparse when we plant them because we're going to go 1.5 feet apart. It says 18 inches. So we're going to make a single row over here and here, but we're going to try and double the rows right in the center. We can't go all the way over there with the zinnias really because it's too shady and they won't do well. So we're going to have to put something else that like shade over in that area. But we can use the zinnias from about over there all the way around. These are short stuff zinnias. So they're going to get about 8 to 10 inches tall. So in some of these areas where over here it's bare up to the wall, so I'm going to put the short ones over there. So we'll have the tall zinnias here, and then we'll taper down to the short ones over there. They're ready to bloom. So they've all got a bud, and people are really excited to see that. Okay, now see this bud right here? We're just going to pinch the bud right off, okay? We're going to pinch it. Okay, see all of this growth down the stem at all the leaf nodes, so it's all going to branch out and be really short and full, and that's what we want. So we can pinch that tip off. You can sacrifice it to the very beginning, but it's going to pay off dividends hugely down the road. Okay, so now when we're ready to plant the zinnias, we're going to pop one out. And you see all the roots here. Okay, so we need to kind of open those up a little bit. We're going to just pull them apart a little bit, and we can even pull the bottom. And then there we have it. So now what we're going to do, this is ready to throw in the holes. So when we have the holes, we just toss them. But we'll have the holes there, and they'll land in the holes. So it's really fun. When you have large, massive beds, you've got to be able to do it more rapidly. And so you go along, you dig all the holes with the hoe. Then you come along and you toss the plants, and then you come along and you plant. And so you can do that quite quickly because time is of the essence. If you have a lot to get done, the more efficient you are, the more you can get done. Okay, now we're ready for the final stage. We're going to get to the planting. Do you see how long it has taken? The preparation is much longer than the planting, but by doing the preparation correctly, our plants will be much better. It'll pay off in the long run. Okay, we're going to make our planting holes with the hoe. So we make a hole there. Now this is for the large zinnias, and they're going to be about 1.5 feet apart. So we'll figure out where we want our holes. Also, I found in maintaining large beds, if you plant them in a row, when it comes to weeds, if you use a hula hoe, you can go straight through and you can get the weeds a lot better than if you have them staggered. You might want to use one plant tag, just leave one, so if you need to refer to the information to see what you remember what you planted. To finish this bed off, to kind of get the final touches, we're going to cut some things back. I'm going to cut the rosemary back a little bit. See, it's going into the oregano. Now, when we get to lamb's ears that everybody likes, they can get very invasive, and they're getting into the prunella, or it's called self-heal. So here's how we handle that. Just take that lamb's ear and pull it out. That's how I do it. I just pull out what I don't want. And if you want more lamb's ears, just plant these. Pull them up and plant them. All right, now the final step is to water in our plants right away so that they don't become stressed, and is after lunchtime now. We started this morning when it was cool. Okay, so I'm gonna turn this on. It's a battery operated timer, and then I can set it for how many minutes that I want. So there's the garden, and you can see the soil. It's nice and smooth, and everything is weed free. If we just threw those plants in there and didn't clean it up, then next week we would have kind of a mess. Thank you for joining us for this morning. We created a beautiful garden, and we should, perhaps we can visit it throughout the summer to see its progress. And we will move on to the geraniums next, but thank you for joining me, and I enjoyed the entire morning. Thank you.